Hey everyone, it's Eddie G, DM Fumble, and this is another edition of Fumbling Around. It's been a while since I've uploaded a video. I've had some things going on in my personal life that took me away from being able to do this, but I'm back now and hopefully I'll be able to keep a more regular schedule. So today, let's talk about the OGL. Why not? Everyone else is. But there's one thing I want to talk about that I don't see a lot of other channels talking about. And I call this the man behind the curtain, Hasbro. Remember, if you like the content you're seeing here, please consider that like, subscribe, notification. All of those things really do go towards helping the channel grow. And if you want to, please feel free to send this link over to a friend, someone else you might think who would like to know more about OGL, what's going on with that, D&D content, or any of my Dragonlance videos that I have on the channel. First, let's review how we got here. So, what is the OGL? Well, the OGL is a license that was rolled out during the creation of D&D 3rd edition. The idea was that it would allow third-party companies and even people like you and me to create content for D&D legally within a framework that we would be able to earn money and see our efforts grow and become whatever we wanted it to be alongside what WotC was doing. And this was supposed to be a great partnership in that they expected the third-party companies and smaller publishers to pick up on areas, niche products and so forth that they didn't really want to cover. So that was supposed to be a beneficial arrangement for everyone involved, and seems to have been that way for over 20 years. In addition to the OGL, we have something called the SRD. The SRD is the System Reference Document, and that is the listing of all of the rules and content that you're allowed to use through the OGL in creating content. So it spells out that there are spells that you're allowed to use, such as Magic Missile and Hold Person and things like that. There are creatures you're allowed to use, goblins, kobolds. It also does say that there are things you're not allowed to use, things that WotC considers to be their exclusive IP. I believe Beholders, Yanti, and Mind Flayers are on those lists of things you can't touch. But it gives you a very rich playground of mechanics for the rules, as well as content that you can use to build whatever you wanted to in your own personal products, free of charge. Lastly, there's something called the D20 System Trademark License. It's not really used anymore, but in 3rd edition, it was a logo that you could apply on your products that would identify your product as being compatible with D&D. This was a great way for you to get your product that is on a shelf, have a little call out that would alert people looking at all the different fantasy or whatever type of products they're looking at in a game store know, okay, this product, wherever it might be in the store, is compatible with the D&D books I already have. Like I said, the System Trademark License isn't really used anymore, but there is a story that I'm going to tell that calls back to this later on. Now, the OGL 1.0A is the backbone for almost everything you see that is related to D&D, from OSR content to Pathfinder, practically everything from Cobalt Press, MCDM, and scores of other companies, again, going all the way back to that 3rd edition. From initial inception, the license was supposed to be such that WotC could never cancel it. It was thought to be irrevocable, and that's a key word surrounding this whole issue. With the twin forces of this perpetual OGL license and the ever-evolving SRD, the world was great. We got a playground where everyone could create products for their favorite games, including niche products that WotC would never attempt, all manner of new settings, and so many adventures. And it was a rising tide that lifted all boats, including WotC, because for every third-party book sold, you probably needed a PHB, a DMG, and maybe even a monster manual to go along with it. Now, let's fast forward to today. Right now, D&D is more popular than ever. 5e has really helped bring back a lot of the customer and fan base that was not very receptive to 4e Dungeons and Dragons. It is a great blending of old and new mechanics and easy to grasp concepts, and everyone seems to really enjoy this new system. On top of that, we've got brand extensions like comic books, we've got novels, Drit's Forgotten Realms novels, new Dragonlance novels. We've got all manner of toys, brand partnerships like Monopoly D&D, Yahtzee D&D. We even have that upcoming Lego set I talked about previously. And of course, we have that upcoming D&D movie that itself is being supported with its own line of novels and toys and probably even much more. Yes, it is more popular than ever. That satanic panic from the 80s, it's gone. And in its place, we have D&D in schools to help teach math, literacy, and teamwork. We have D&D as a therapeutic tool for people dealing with all manner of mental health issues. The game, and by extension, the company, stands on hallowed ground that it hasn't held in many years. And while they should be basking in the sun, there was a storm on the horizon. A recent quote during an investor meeting from WotC's C-suite said D&D was under-monetized, and they wanted more recurrent spending, especially among the player segment, as opposed to the DMs of the game, since players are the most numerous but lowest spenders of the overall customer base. So, on the heels of all this, they attempted to release a new OGL, and it's been a debacle/disaster for many different reasons. First, after 20 years of believing that the OGL 1.0A could not be deauthorized, that it was irrevocable, and this comes from the original architect of that license, WotC now claims it can be. Secondly was the ramrod approach they had to trying to get the community to accept this new OGL. They sent it to big publishers. Secretly, they had, I think, 6 or 7 days to sign off on it. They thought if they got the big publishers to fall in line, that everyone else would just follow along with what the big guys were doing. Didn't turn out that way. Also, the new OGL had a royalty structure so that if you made a certain amount of money, you had to kick back as much as 20 to 25%, I believe, back to WotC. Now, this would really affect only the largest third-party companies, but it's still a bad idea. And again, leaves just a bad taste in the mouth of everyone involved in this from the community side of view. There's a license back clause in the new document saying that they have a perpetual, irrevocable ownership of your content, which means they could theoretically take your content, bundle it up, and sell it and not give you any profits, because that's not included in the license. And they could, again, do it without any legal repercussions from you. They are trying to say that we're never going to do that, and there might be other reasons for that, but they did not clarify it, and it looks bad. Also, the last thing they have in here is they have a provision in the new OGL that they can change this OGL with 30 days notice. And that implication to small publishers would be disastrous. If they're in the middle of creating a book and now that book is no longer legal under the change, they would have to, change the book, or if it's in the printing process, destroy copies. That'll put small publishers, easily out of business. Interestingly enough, none of these components of this new OGL directly affect the player spending that they cite as their original company goal. Their investor meeting mentions nothing about squeezing more money out of third-party publishers. So, after these new terms were leaked, community blowback was loud and hard across all channels. YouTube, Twitter, there were calls for boycotts, including canceling D&D Beyond subscriptions. And this last part is important because that was the most immediate metric for Big H to see the real financial impact of what they were attempting to do. Was this just a vocal minority with no real teeth, or would the community actually stand up and take real action? Well, they did take real action. to the tune of over 50,000 canceled subscriptions. And at a rate of just $3 a month for the lowest tier, that's a loss of $150,000 a month, $1.8 million a year. Ouch. Okay, so after a much long time of no response, WotC tries to defuse the situation with a poorly worded press release. They first start gaslighting that 1.0 OGL was not the final version, that it was only a draft. This is categorically untrue. They also say they're doing this to stop bigotry, racism, and NFTs. Oh my. I'd like to know how royalties stop bigotry and racism. Also, it should be noted that insensitivity claims have been leveled against WotC at their content, including things such as content within Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation, as well as the recent Spelljammer box set. How will they stop bigotry and racism? Maybe with that 30-day change clause. But that hasn't been clarified by WotC. And what I mean is that they tried to do something like this back in 3rd edition. So remember that D20 system trademark license I was talking about? So back then there was a product that they were a bit worried about. It was called the Book of Erotic Fantasy. And the folks at WotC decided to change the D20 system trademark license to say that there had to be a review of all products coming out using that license, blah, blah, blah. Eventually the book came out without using the D20 system trademark, but only coming out as the OGL. And giving up that logo and therefore rendering the whole issue moot. In the end, WotC's statement failed to completely win over the fan community and really created only more resentment. Meanwhile, other major companies, including Piezo, have vowed to create a new license that truly is irrevocable and will be managed by a third-party nonprofit organization. While other companies, including Cobalt Press, are vowing to create a rule set that will be the equivalent of the SRD and a spiritual successor to 5e. So that's going on. Now there's a second attempt or a second press release from WotC. In this new press release, they finally say, "We are sorry." But they also still say that 1.1 was just a draft document. Again, we know that to be completely untrue. This 1.1 OGL was sent to those big publishers with contracts to sign. It was not a draft. It was always meant to be the final product. They got caught, and now they're trying to backpedal. They really need to drop this claim of draft and just try to move on without it. So they have also, in this new statement, they've also vowed to release game mechanics through a Creative Commons license. Well, game mechanics aren't copyrightable anyway, so they're on pretty weak footing here to begin with. So this seems to be the easiest giveaway for them to do. They're keeping a lot of content back at this time. We'll see how the process evolves and if they make more content like spells, like creatures, as part of this free Creative Commons license. They've also created a channel with the proposed new OGL 1.2, where they're presenting it online, they're soliciting feedback, and they're going to go through a revision process, much like the way they're approaching 1D&D, much like the way they approached 5e and other open community engagement efforts. One area where they don't seem to be willing to budge is this idea that OGL 1.0 will remain active. They still claim that that is going to be revoked and that only this new OGL 1.2, 2.0, 3. Whatever is going to be the only active one that will be allowed. They've walked back some of their other claims. There's going to be there's no royalties, there's no license back, some of the other restrictions as well. Any content that was released under 1.0A will still be valid as 1.0A content, but new content going forward will need to adapt to this new OGL when it gets finalized. Okay, So that's really where we are today. OGL 1.2 is available in its truly draft version online, where you can read it and comment back to the folks. Okay, so our current events lesson is over. And I want to get back to that one area that I think is being overlooked by most of the other commentary that I've been listening to and through YouTube and following online through Twitter. And that's what I'm calling the man behind the curtain. It's not the great and powerful WotC we need to fear, but the man behind the curtain, and in this case, Hasbro. Simply put, Hasbro doesn't care for their customers. They like their customers' money, but Big H would like to cut out the middleman, woman, and child. And they have shown this across many different product lines. If you're a Magic the Gathering player, you know the fiasco around the 30th anniversary release of these special Magic cards. I don't play Magic the Gathering, but even I heard about it. In short, as a celebration for 30 years of the game, they offered customers the chance to buy 4 packs of randomly assorted cards based on the original series of cards. All this for the low price of $1,000 for 4 packs of, I believe, 12 cards each, something like that. And the price is actually $999 to be exact, but you get what I'm saying here. These cards would also not even be tournament legal, and you had no idea or no guarantee of what card you're getting because you're buying blind boosters. This seemed to be a blatant money grab, and fans for the most part seem to have rejected it. If you're a fan of action figure toys, you may have heard of Hasbro Pulse and HasLab. Pulse seems to be their direct-to-consumer online store, and HasLab is their own crowdfunding platform for high-priced items like a minifigure-sized Jabba sail barge that's over 4 feet in length and costs around $500. Some of these expensive products have had their own issues that should have been caught during the production process, such as the Marvel Sentinel figure having a knee issue where you had to do your own repairs after you plunked down $350 a figure. Additionally, there's also a series of products that seem to be significantly overpriced and underwhelming to their customers. Look for the Star Wars Carbon Freezing Chamber on Hasbro, as well as their Ghost Rider Engine of Vengeance campaign. All of this leads to the conclusion that Hasbro will try to squeeze as much money out of each customer as they think the customer base will stand. And some of their recent offerings show that they don't have much respect for the customers to begin with. It seems the only reason they reversed course on the OGL is because they got caught. If they could have sneaked this through without anyone noticing, they would be more than happy to have done that and gotten away with it. It's only because of how extensive and how loud the backlash has been that they're now making these efforts to change what's going on. Maybe they're going to plan to wait and see if this will all blow over and calm down before they go back to their original plan A. Maybe they'll give some concessions, but change things incrementally down the road. All I can say is stay loud. Everyone keeps talking about this issue, and not just on YouTube. Today I saw an article on WashingtonPost.com about this. The more this goes mainstream, the more pressure Hasbro feels internally, including from their investors. Lastly, realize that the halcyon days of the past are over. They squandered all the good trust that they built up over 20 years' time in the span of just 9,000 words. I don't know what the end will be, but I do feel like I know what Hasbro's end game plan is. So keep watching this channel, keep watching YouTube and other news sources, and thank you for watching. And again, if you want to follow me on socials, I'm DM Fumble, drop the E, on Twitter and Instagram.